We were all just hit with a barrage of political commercials for the Michigan primary. Hey, someone had to pay for all those. The job of political fundraising can be cutthroat, and it can also be exhilarating, especially during a pandemic. You might think during a pandemic, people pull back on political donations, and in some cases, you'd be right. But others met and even surpassed political fundraising goals for the primary, and now are out there asking for more donations for the November election. Joining us now on the phone is Derek Dickow, who has helped raise hundreds of thousands of dollars for candidates over the years. Derek, thanks for being on the Mitch Albom Show.
Honored to be with you, Kevin.
So tell us a little bit about political fundraising. It sounds, on one hand, people often say it's difficult to ask people for money, but on the other hand, when it comes to politicians, maybe it's easier to get people to give. What do you find when you're out there?
Well, I find that generally people want to support good elected leaders in office. Most people that we know in this area are successful business people, and they want to make sure and ensure that people that are making decisions on their behalf are doing so with knowledge and just doing a good job representing their issues. So
how is this year different than years past with COVID?
Well, that's a fun question. You know, we have never raised money before in the midst of a 100-year global pandemic. And we did not ask for money between, I'd say, like early March up until mid-May. We just didn't feel comfortable with it. A lot of people had been decimated, especially retailers, those in hospitality. You think about people that own restaurants. And it was challenging. So we did a lot of outreach. We focused on messaging, and we just called people in business and just wanted to see where they were. And if they needed help navigating PPP, did they need help or connections to other people in business? That was our focus early between March and mid-May. And now we're here, and we're fortunate to be in a good position to have a couple clients that won on Tuesday and looking forward to November, 89 days away.
That's going to be a busy 89 days. If you have events, if you had events planned and they were canceled, do people always want their money back, or will people say, you know what, just keep it for the campaign and we'll come to the next event?
That's a great question. A lot of our donors were very happy to support candidates, irrespective of events. They prefer to come to events. They prefer to meet people, shake hands, and of course, network with some other like-minded business folks. And when you take that away from people, then you just have a candidate and what their mission and beliefs are. And we found that a lot of our donors were more than willing to just let the campaign keep the money, and we'll hopefully get in front of them soon.
They always say it's about shaking hands and kissing babies, but you can't do either of those things during COVID-19. Did you have virtual events, or do virtual events work very well?
Virtual events did work. We found, and we did pivot on the business side of things as well as politically. We found that a lot of donors were more than happy to set up Zoom calls with our candidates. And that turned out to be a wonderful way to get some face time. You still get to see the eyeballs of the donor and introduce the candidates to each other. And, you got to work with what you got. You got two things. You got a positive winning attitude, and you can leverage technology. And if you're able to utilize both, more power to you.
I'm not sure if I'm watching less TV, but I didn't feel like I saw as many political commercials this time around. I didn't feel bombarded. I wonder was there a lot less money collected this time around for everybody?
Well, first of all, I'm sure that was a welcomed respite every time you turned on TV to just take a break from all those political campaign ads. We think that, yeah, absolutely. Less money came in through the campaigns to the various candidates that we had. Ultimately, people that we felt like would max out maybe gave a percentage of that. But we found that people really resonated with the messaging, and they appreciated our candidates reaching out to them, not just to ask for money, but also to check in on them and their businesses. And so it was a combination for us.
And what about yard signs? I was driving around, and it seemed like they didn't go up very early this time around. But then right before, a day or two before, or a week or two before, I started seeing them, and then more and more. Was there concern in purchasing yard signs that maybe there's not as many people out and about because people aren't going to work?
Interesting point. We find that the yard signs are still a very effective way to reach voters and to help build brand identity for candidates, especially first-time candidates. whether they're in judicial races or running for Congress. People still resonate with lawn signs, and they're important. And that's why we think that, raising money in a primary election is the most important thing you can do for a candidate that allows them to communicate to the voter in their voice, which is the most efficient way for them to do so. And, the old-fashioned opening your mailbox and getting some literature and seeing lawn signs, it's still helpful, even in this modern day. We've seen a lot of people make that pivot to technology with Facebook and social media. However, lawn signs are still helpful. They're still effective, and so is mail.
Yeah, in the last segment, we were talking about President Donald Trump trying to move up the debate because he's concerned more and more people are going to mail in their ballots. And we saw a record number of ballots mailed in Michigan for the primary, and everybody is expecting there'll be a record number of ballots mailed in November as well. Does that put pressure on you to raise money quickly and so that people can get commercials on earlier or get the word out earlier, so that people have the information they need when they mail in that ballot?
Well, as a political consultant, I can guarantee you there is always pressure to always raise more money, and whatever that goal is, it seems like the candidate continues to move the goalposts on it. The longer we get into the race, they can always find efficient and effective uses to get their messaging out there to candidates and to the public. And they need to do that, especially now early, because absentee voting is resonating well with voters, which is a good thing. We want more people to participate in the process. And the easiest and hopefully the safest way to do that is by securing an absentee ballot and dropping it off to the clerk in advance of Election Day.
So you did well in the primary. You still have two candidates moving forward. What do you expect to see? What are the challenges that you expect to face?
Well, the biggest thing for us is we're cutting retail politics completely out of it. There's no more events. I think events are limited to 10 people indoors and maybe 100 people outside. And it's very challenging for people. People are uncomfortable shaking hands still. And you're still required to wear a mask. And in this day, the voter contact is changed. And so what we focused on with our candidates is for them to hone in on their messaging, focus on outreach and picking up that phone and dialing, where maybe in a typical time we might call 25 to 50 people a day. We might have to double that. And the outreach has to be there. We've removed events entirely. And so you got to be creative. And this is that time to leverage relationships, to leverage networking, and to leverage your messaging.
So when you're trying to raise money and you go to the well, you go to the people who've given in the past, and they're like, hey, business isn't so great. We suffered hard through COVID. We want to support the candidate, but we can't give money right now. What do you say? I mean, do you get mad at them and hang up the phone, or do you be extra nice to them for the next time around, or do you just have a conversation with them so that you build your relationship with the donor?
Well, mostly it's listening to them, listening to their issues, and being very aware of their industry, what affected them, how they've got impacted. Look, some people haven't been able to feed their families lately, and so they've been closed in business. So what asking somebody for money in that regard would be a totally tone-deaf thing to do, which we would never encourage. And so most of it is asking questions to our potential donors. And you started the segment saying we've raised hundreds of thousands. We've raised millions of dollars for our candidates over the last 8 years, and we've been honored to do so. And it's the way that we've raised money has been focusing on the candidate, focusing on their messaging. And, the most important thing is to make sure and to ensure statewide and nationally that we have great representation at every level of government, and that comes with a cost, and freedom comes at a price. And if you want to have the right elected leaders making decisions in the midst of a global pandemic or during regular time on your behalf and on your family's behalf, you want to make sure that we elect good leaders that will do a good job in good times and in challenging times.
All right, Derek Dickow, thanks for being on the Mitch Albom Show. Good luck in November.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's an honor to join you.